you're typically in the checkout line, you usually see all sorts of magazines, like the newest one is Cosmopolitan or 17, kind of like these. Well, the issue today is the topics such as that, or maybe something like that. So the issues with these are, we've all been in that similar situation where we've been in the grocery store and we're like, who reads that? Like, really? Come on, who reads that? Well, we've all been predisposed to this, and especially me because I go to the grocery store a lot. But from a young age, we've all seen this, and it's kind of, how does this affect us? Maybe it affects specific sexes in a different way. Maybe it affects different age groups in a different way. But today I want to talk about how it affects everybody today. So, my first point is I want to talk about how it affects us about weight and our body image, and how it affects us in a sexual way. My second point is the research that backs this up, and my third point is how this affects us all. So, when we talk about being healthy, it's really addressed through a lot of the magazines, how to be healthy, certain tips, certain exercises you can do. But one of the main issues is addressed in Bowling Green State University, the head of the Department of Telecommunications, who is Sung Yoon Park. She addressed in her article the influence of presumed media influence on women's desire to be thin in the Communication Research Journal in 2005. She reported that 40% of 6-year-old girls reported wishing they were thinner. 6-year-olds, you guys. 6-year-olds. This is the kind of media influence we're putting on our children. 6-year-olds thinking they need to be thinner. Well, this kind of idea can lead to strict dieting and a potential precursor to serious eating disorders, which is a major issue, especially to our own health. But looking at it in a sexual way, you see in certain magazines such as 17, articles like how to hook up or how to send a dirty text. Like, really? So, specific pediatricians have looked at specific cases, like Jana Kim and Monique Ward, who are both pediatricians, wrote in their article, Pleasure Reading, Associations Between Young Women and Sexual Attitudes in their Reading of Content in Women's Magazines. In the Psychology of Women's Quarterly in 2004, they reported that 60% of college-aged women and 75% of white teenage girls read at least one issue per month. So although that may sound a little, okay, yeah, what's the point about that? The main point is, though, it offers special advantages for girls seeking info about sex and dating. So in that way, it influences us to become more aware of that kind of stuff. But also Jane Brown addresses in a separate book, she addresses with other doctors and pediatricians in Sexy Media Matter, exposure to sexual content in music, movies, TV, and magazines. And it predicts the black and white adolescent sexual behavior in the Pediatrics Journal in 2006. She mainly addresses how the mass media has a way to be powerful and to really promote sexual education. Also because they provide frequent and compelling portraits of sex as fun and risk-free. So they're kind of providing who cares, you can go out and have sex, whatever, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal. So to wrap that up, I talked about how it affects our self-image and how it affects people to think about how they are sexually. Now I'm going to talk about the research behind that. So in the 1990s, there was a point that was made called self-love, and it was promoted, be happy about your body, but in order to be happy, you should exercise, you should participate more in activities. Well, magazines such as Shape and Self, according to Markiela's article in the Journal of Sport and Social Issues, she addressed that it now implied that body dissatisfaction was an illness that cannot be attended only through an active attitude change toward one's body. So basically, they were telling people, if you're not happy with your weight, that's not only a physical issue, that's a mental issue. So can you imagine being told when you're maybe 15 and you're like, man, I'm really obese, I need to work on that, and then they're telling you, oh, it's not just a physical thing, it means you have something going on wrong in your head too. That's really disturbing. But in a sexual way, they talk about in Jane Brown and Jeanne Steele's ebook, which is Sexual Media, Investigating Media's Influence on Adolescent Sex in 2011. They talked about how more than 60% of high school students, especially girls, said they learned about pregnancy prevention, birth control, and contraception from magazines. So instead of hearing about it from parents or discussing it with friends or peers or maybe adult influences, they're learning about it more through the media. So I think that's kind of an issue. You know, you're not talking with your parents about these kind of specific problems or situations that you might be in, especially when it comes to pregnancy prevention, which is a big deal today. So my last point today is I want to show you a specific video about a model who talks about how this influenced her in the modeling business.
And a plastic bag to people over 18. Her petition caught the attention of the FTC, which is now reviewing the magazine's content.
The power is in numbers, and most importantly, we have God behind us, so I know it's going to happen.
But most people say, oh, it's just Cosmo.
Yeah.
They're a little over the top.
Mhm.
But you're saying that's not the case.
No, not at all. I mean, people think it's just a fun women's fashion magazine, but the magazine, the central core of the magazine is all about pushing sex from a young age to girls, but pushing it in a very graphic manner. It's not just saying, oh, have sex with your spouse, or it's saying, girls, give it up right away to a hookup. That's the term they always use.
Studies show that over-sexualization of girls is detrimental to their psychological growth. That's why Nicole reaches out to young women on her website called Project Inspired.
Okay, so Nicole is just one of the many models today that talk about how, from their perspective in the modeling business, how it affects them, that they have been influenced by the magazine editors, by photographers, all specific situations in modeling business, how this affects people, not only the readers, but also the people that partake in this business. So, in conclusion, this is a big deal for everybody because it not only does the magazines influence us to behave a certain way or think a certain way about ourselves, but also television and radio, whatever we listen to, whatever we focus on intently, that really has an influence upon how we are as people. So it's really important to think about your body image and how comfortable you are with yourself and how you think you should behave in a certain way, whether it's physically, mentally. We've seen how it affects us sexually and when it comes to our body image. We've seen research that backs up this idea that it does detriment our mental health in a certain way. And I've discussed with you how it's really important for you guys to establish what's good for you guys in the future. So I'm not saying don't read them. I encourage you, it's okay to read them, but when it comes to protecting yourself from certain things like that, I think it's really helpful if you're able to look past those specific articles. Thank you.